Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Please subscribe to our videos on YouTube and like this video if you find it useful. This is a review of the Casio ProTrek PRG-280. We review a lot of Casio watches. Well, not a lot, but enough. And, you know, there's a lot in the G-Shock range that we review, a lot in the ProTrek range we review. And sometimes I think to myself, are there too many? Like, are we covering a lot of stuff? Is it making people confused? Well, that's a good question. I think something that we need to think about a lot. But Casio does release a healthy assortment of new ProTrek and G-Shock models each year, and they all have little differences. And those are in terms of design, functionality, and a lot of them have technical advancements. And one thing that people need to realize is that there's sort of a spectrum where there's sort of lower end ProTreks and higher end G-Shocks and things like that. So they all have slightly different features and things like that. The PRG-280 is interesting because it's a more entry-level model, but there's a few things I think it does right. So as a ProTrek watch, most of these have had what I call the triple sensor. This is the first ProTrek I've actually seen personally that does not have triple sensor. And triple sensor would have been compass, barometer, altimeter, and then also a thermometer, but because that's sort of, I guess, a thrown-in one there. This one does not have a barometer, altimeter. It does have a compass, and it does tell the temperature. This is also a hybrid analog-digital dial that, as you can see, has a digital screens, actually 3 of them. One here, it's bisected a little bit, so there's one underneath it, and then a different screen here. And it does have these large analog hands that you can read quite easily, as well as an analog function selector. For years, Casio has been trying to implement analog dials into its ProTrek and G-Shock collection. And the reason they do it is they feel that analog watches sell better and are considered more mature items, but you always have a sacrifice in terms of functionality, because dealing with complex sets of menus and things like that with hands is just kind of a pain. So one of the more positive things I like to say about this model is probably one of the first ones I've seen that makes good use of mixing features and functionality with sort of an analog system. I also like that the digital screens are they're negative LCDs, meaning that they're darker colored, so they don't stand out as much. And so if you really just want to think about this as a watch with, you know, basically 2 large, you know, hands for the hours and minutes as well as a seconds hand, you can do that. And so you have actually a pretty handsome you know, digital analog ProTrek, and so that's something I like. But again, you are going to have more limited functionality, but again, the price point does reflect that. So let's talk about some of the things other than the triple sensors that this does not have. It does not have any type of atomic clock syncing, so there's no radio control in order to automatically sync the time where the signals from atomic clocks are located. Casio says that this does have solar power generation, which is good. I personally do not know where the solar cells are. It's possible that they're somehow underneath or integrated into the LCD screens. Usually you can tell on the dial where the photovoltaic cells are, which allow the light to enter to recharge the battery. So they say it has it. It could be actually right there in the middle of where the function selector is. I'm not necessarily sure, but Casio says it's there. Oddly enough, it doesn't say it anywhere on the case. So if you look on the case, normally it would say something like Tough Solar. It doesn't say Tough Solar for whatever reason on the case. I don't think I missed it, but that's odd. Like it would say it like right here or something like that. So they, you know, multiple areas on Casio's site say that it does have the solar, you know, the light generated power in the movement, so you don't have to change the battery. So that's good if that is in fact so. So let's talk about how this watch works, because it's a little bit different than your normal ProTrek, but it's by no means that complicated. Of course, you have a light. And the light is pretty bright. You can see it comes up from there. And in addition to the light, you do have luminant on the hands and the hour markers, and that's actually not always the case in analog Casio products. Sometimes, like, some of the elements are loomed and some aren't. Here, I believe they're all loomed, which is good, so that you can see the watch in the dark. You push the compass button here, and then that second hand basically turns into the compass needle, and you can see the specific readout there. And there is a bi-directional rotating navigational bezel if you know how to use that and want to use that. And then after a few seconds, that's going to go back to the normal screen, or you can just manually do it by pushing mode. Pushing search down here enters the thermometer mode there. So it's on centigrade, so you can see at the top there it would say 27.1 degrees. And again, when you want to actually get a proper reading, you should take the watch off your wrist, because the watch is going to warm up based upon your wrist. So that's how you activate that setting. Here you can have some adjustability there in what the dials say. So right here in this sub dial here with this digital window, you're going to have the day of the week. And then by pushing adjust, you can switch between the month and the date, or just the time in digital format in addition here. Pushing mode again moves this hand to change between the various functions. So you have world time, you have the stopwatch or chronograph function, you have a timer, you have alarm. And that's basically what you got. So it isn't the sort of most full-featured set of functionality that you might have come to get used to in a lot of the sort of higher-end ProTrek models, but I think this is enough utility for what most people are looking for. I find the watch to be pretty attractive. I mean, it is a ProTrek, so it's going to have that larger size, but of course, because of the sort of plastic body construction strap, it's going to be light. So even though this is a larger watch, you're really not going to feel it very much on the wrist. I happen to think this is attractive. Again, this is one version of the PRG-280, and of course, Casio is going to offer a few of them, so there's going to be some different sort of color variations. This is black with a sort of silver color bezel and a little bit of green as a trim. There's a few different versions. I'm not sure what all those are, but usually there's 3 or 4 or 5 different versions of the watch, depending on how popular it is. Overall, I think the plus sides of this, if you like the sort of analog digital style dial, but feel that some of them have had reduced functionality because they're so complex, Casio does a great job of instilling a sense of simplicity and intuitiveness to the controls of the features here. So that's a plus. And also plus is the dial is attractive and everything is pretty easy to read. That's good. On the downside, you don't have all the features. But again, this does come in at a lower retail price than most of the Casio ProTrek models. So I think that this watch does feature a nice mixture of elements. And so, this is really not the coldest bowl of porridge. It's not the hottest one. It's somewhere there in the middle for the right type of person. So if you have a bunch of ProTreks, you might not want to run out and get this one already, but if you've been on the fence, or if you've been looking for a particular style, this is definitely something compelling, because even though it comes in as more of an entry-level price point, it does some things quite well, and the simplicity is something that I sort of can't understate enough, or understate as being not very important, because it is important. Because again, it's not just the amount of features that the Japanese can put into the watch, it's how accessible and easy they are to use, which is important in my opinion, and I think that the PRG-280 does that well. Retail price for this model is just $220, and you can see the full review on aBlogtoWatch soon.